Welcome to Value Through Vulnerability, a podcast dedicated to putting the human back into humanity. This evening, or this morning in the UK, this evening Australia, I'm very grateful to have Jeremy Scrivens with me. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Enjoying our 29 degrees, as long as it lasts, so very happy.
Yeah, I was with you in England last week, and about 5 weeks ago, and it just reminded me back of that crazy summer of 1976. For those who can remember 76 in England, it was amazing. I was 21 years old and courting a girl in England, and it was the hottest summer on record. And I think this one in 2018 could come close to it, I think.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So you mentioned you've been in the UK quite recently. Before we get going, would you mind giving a bit of an introduction to you, Jeremy, who you are, what you've been up to, what you're passionate about at the moment, just to give us a sort of couple of minutes about who is Jeremy?
Well, I was born in Oxford in 1955 in England. Son of an Anglican clergyman, and he was going to university at the time, studying at Wycliffe Hall in Oxford, studying theology, and then about 7 years old, we went to live in Chesham, went to Chesham Preparatory School, and then my father, who hated cold. We had the coldest winter on record, I think, in the UK, 62.3. Again, that's going back a long time now, boy. Okay, so for those who can remember 62.3, you can't look it up because it was amazing. Like, it was literally snowed under for weeks then. And that was it. So my father used to say, I love to sweat but not shiver. So that was it. That was enough of England. So and he loved cricket. So somewhere warm, somewhere where cricket was played. So we went off to Rhodesia for 4 years. Zimbabwe is it's called now. That was a padre in the Rhodesian army. I went to school there and played cricket and loved playing cricket. Then it got a bit tough over there. So we came back to England about 68. Went to school, King Alfred's Grammar School in Wantage for a year and a half. Another cold summer in 69. So dad's looking out again. So off we go to Jamaica for a year and a half. And I'm telling you a funny story in Jamaica. Can I tell you a funny story?
Please do.
So in Jamaica, right, I'm 13, 14 years old, right, and I persuaded my dad not to go to school for a year and a half. We're in the middle of Jamaica, a little place called Chapelton. And so I persuaded him not to go to school for a year. So I've got to read all these history books and literature. That's why I got a love for reading and stuff. Anyway, I'm sitting every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sitting out, right, outside, and I've done my chores. I've sort of pushed the lawnmower, this manual lawnmower, up and down this grass hill. And every time I finished it, the grass is literally growing back as a jungle. And these Jamaican boys, and sorry Jamaican, sorry about the accent, okay, so I apologize. I'll do my best here. But the Jamaican boys come out and say, "Oh, Jeremy, man, yeah, man, why you not go to school, man? Yeah, we'll come out now, you get your bat and your board, we go and play a little bit of cricket now." So I got my bat and my board, and we go out and play cricket now. And this went on for a few months, right? Every day. Then I was getting a bit older, so going through puberty, and they going through puberty. And one day, it was like about 6 months later. "Yeah, Jeremy, man. Yeah, man, you get your bat and board, we go out to play a little bit of cricket, man. And afterwards, we go and we smoke a little bit of ganja and go and play with the girls." And I was sort of processing this a bit, and I sort of went, my father said to me, "Oh, what?" Some other goes, "Oh, so what are you going to do?" I said, "Oh, usual thing." I didn't think. I was too stupid not to think. So I said, "Oh, I'm going to, go out and play a little bit of cricket, Then we're going to go and smoke a little bit of ganja, and then we're going to go to play with the girls." 6 weeks later, we were back on a banana boat, slopes banana boat, all the way back to England. That was it. That was the end of my Jamaican adventure. So then we went back to England for a year. Then it got cold again, and off we go to Australia. So I'm 15. I'm in Australia. So I hadn't been to school for about 2 years, and so I had to end up. My father persuaded the University of WA basically spent the school to put me into year 11, which was like, sort of, what's the second level highest form in England called now? I forget form. It's like the year before you do your A levels, yeah. And so because I was like 2 years behind, 2 years younger, but somehow my dad persuaded the principal to get me in. Then he went off to the University of West Australia and got all the examination papers from the last 7 years. So I swatted them at night time and passed the A-level equivalent, got into university with a scholarship. So didn't know what I was doing, knew nothing about life or whatever, but we went into university, which was pretty cool. And then I did history for about a bachelor's and master's in history. Persuaded the university. I did a subject on old age and aging in pre-industrial England. I knew I had to, once I got that in place in WA, then I'd have to go back to the faculty. Excuse me, all the resources are in London. Can you pay for me to go to London, which is what they did. So I spent a few weeks in London, met a girl who was coming out from Australia, went back to England, went back to Australia, and so I kind of lived there. Joined the Commonwealth Public Service as a graduate intake. Then did that for a few years. I got in the personnel sort of area, or HR we call it now. So I've always been interested in what work is, and so I got into what you might call organisation development, and fascinated by what work is, and did that for a number of years, and then kind of did the HR stuff, but restructuring. But a lot of it was the headspace. You know, a lot of it was around. We use the word transformation now. Transformation is being used all over the world to describe digital. Hey guys, I've got a news for you. There's nothing new about the word transformation. It's been around for 40 years, and most of it was headspace. Then trying to engage people from the head, and I knew that we were trying to do. I was using Lean and Six Sigma, and working on taking out costs and efficiency and stuff. And then while that was good, something was missing. And the more I did it, the more I felt something was missing about true transformation. And I think in a nutshell, I became interested in continuous improvement in the 90s, did a lot of work around that, but still something was missing. And then as I left, I went to Telstra to work as the HR manager in Australia's biggest telecommunications company. A lot of big gigs, transformation, but again, something was missing. And I had to leave Telstra and go and start my own practice. And my own practice was around Lean and Six Sigma, and I became interested in conversation around waste. Somehow I became passionate about the idea of focusing on what doesn't work, and I love going to the executive rooms, bring all these horror stories back about what people told me about what doesn't work. I remember doing that with an organization. It was a flight catering company, and back in 2002, and this is what changed my life, right? I went in there, I went out and interviewed about 60 different people who were in these kitchens around Australia, called them kitchens, big sort of industrial sort of business to make all the flight meals. And I went and talked to these people about all the bad things were happening. I was doing what was called a people diagnostic. You see, diagnostic, look for what's broken or doesn't work. And I came back with all these horror stories about. And so, for example, in Melbourne, right? In Melbourne, they've got this kitchen there, and there's a lot of Italians in the kitchen in Melbourne. And what I discovered is that it was controlled by the mafia. So they got all, and half the liquor's going out, you know, going missing and all that sort of stuff, and the management's trying to work it out, controlled by the mafia. And then I went to the kitchen in Sydney, and a lot of Chinese there. It's controlled by the triads, right, from Hong Kong. So I'm getting all these stories about what doesn't work, and stories about how the truck drivers delivering the food to the aircraft come back with the big sort of, you know, the big food trolleys, and they push them across these demarked areas to try and break the legs of the people who were sort of plating the food. That was horror story stuff. And I thought it was the most brilliant example of what doesn't work I've ever come across. And I was so excited. I want to get and talk to the executive team. So here was happening. The CEO had pulled in a new team that was designed, most of them were new, and they were designed to grow the business, right? Designed to grow the business, not fix it. It's a big difference, not fix it. But I came in with a fix it issue, right? With a fix it lens. And I then got up and started to share all these horror stories. And before long, there was a sense of doom and gloom in the room. And then someone yelled out, "Don't we ever do anything well around here?" And something just transformed in me, because about a year or so before, I'd heard a guy called David Cooperrider, who was a young professor, David Cooperrider in America, talking about a different approach to organizational development, a different approach to change, a different approach to transformation, rather than focus on what doesn't work. Rather look for what works, look for the best of something. He talked about how every organization had a positive core, and that through storytelling and bringing different people into the room, you could share stories around what works. And it was an extraordinary experience for me, listening to this guy. We were very good at Telstra at spending a lot of money on getting the best people in front of us and the latest fads. We weren't so good at implementing them, right, to be honest with you. But I listened to Cooperrider, but I was hating him at the same time. It was love-hate, because he was challenging all the different toolkits I put together. And I tried to put it away. But then this guy yelled out this day, don't we do anything well around here? And something in me stopped. And Gary, what it was my heart that got engaged. And I knew, and I did something, and I hope this is a long introduction here, right? Because I'm going off track. But here's what happened. This is what happened. This is what transformed my working life. in front of this executive team who've been brought in to grow the business. So you see, you can't grow from focusing on what doesn't work. You've got to grow by looking for what gives life.
Mm-hmm.
What gives life? Self-awareness is about, we talked about self-awareness and vulnerability. Are you going to try and be self-aware from your weaknesses or from your strengths?
Mm-hmm.
There's a question I'd like to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to become aware from your weaknesses or your strengths? We've been taught for hundreds of years to focus on our weaknesses. We've taught to be vulnerable from our weaknesses. Why not be vulnerable from your strengths? Right? Now I didn't understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but something inside of me said, wow. And this guy yelled out, don't we do anything well around here? And I found myself suddenly in front of a group of 8 to 10 executives. It was like an out-of-body experience, right? And I just turned around, and this guy's name actually was Gary. And he was, so you can imagine, typical restructure. New CEO comes in, most of the executives go, he brings his own guys on board or whatever. But Gary is one of the 2 remaining execs from the old administration, yeah? And I said to Gary, and I wasn't trained, and I found myself doing it. And part of me was saying, what are you doing, Jeremy? You're just about to kill your consulting career. You know, just started off, mate. What are you doing? But I've always been a risk taker, and I've always been a rebel. But my dad taught me to be a rebel with a cause, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
He taught me to be a rebel with a cause. And so my cause here was, well, it'd be nice to become help this company to grow. So I said to this guy, Gary, how long have you been in the company? He said, I've been in the company for 15 years. He said, and I said, so I want to ask you a question. Just humor me. I said, tell me about a time that you experienced the most amazing customer service in the company. Tell me about a time you experienced something exceptional that day, that you went home that day feeling that you're in the right job at the right time. Everybody's looking at me. Suddenly asked this different question. And I've got my fingers crossed and thinking, what's going to happen here? Will I be transported somehow? You know? But anyway, I'm asking him this question, and I shut up. And he looked at me and he said, Jeremy, that was 5 years ago. See, when you look for strengths, you can go right back. You can mine strengths right through someone's career or the history of things. I said, what happened? He said, well, I was the duty manager on duty over a weekend in the Darwin facility up in north of Australia. And it was 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and I got a call. I got a call from a very senior person in one of our airlines, and one of our customers, to say, we have an emergency situation on our hands. We've got a flight that's going from Sydney to Bangkok. It's got to deviate. It's diverting into Darwin this morning. It's going to be there for 2 whole days while we get emergency repairs and an engine flown out and flown in. Can you guys provide emergency meals? And my first reaction was, this is above my pay grade. I'm not allowed to make those kind of decisions yet. And then I realized that all the executives, all the big guys upstairs, the chefs with the big 4-foot hats, right? The bigger boys, they were all in a love-in somewhere in Sydney with a do not disturb notice. They were building some sort of strategy for the future. They could not be contacted.
Wow.
And he goes, what am I going to do? Now, he was vulnerable, right? He was vulnerable. And then he took a step back. That's a term that's used a lot if we talk about guys on the tools, yeah? Mm-hmm. They use this term. The best ones become self-aware. They take this term, take a step back, which is, in a crisis, just take a step back and pause, reflective thinking. And he goes, what am I going to do? Part of him said, I should have said, no, we can't do anything. But he said, I couldn't do that because there were 250 passengers coming in. And the guy said they're going to put them up at the airport. That was the other thing. There's no accommodation in town. They're going to put them up at the airport. There's a big Scouts jamboree going on. So he goes, what do I do? Now, again, he's a manager. He's supposed to be the expert. He's the person who's supposed to tell people what to do, right? Yeah? He goes, I don't know what to do. And then he goes, okay, look, what I'll do, I'll get my leading hands together. So he gets his 5 or 6 leading hands together. He's got the chef, sous chef. He's got the lady Jane who does the plating of the food. He's got the TW driver. That's our union here. That they're the guys that drive the trucks to the airport. They're the ones that they're only allowed to drive the trucks, all demarked. None of these guys talk to each other. They hate each other's guts. They're in silos. They never talk to each other, right? he gets them in the room together. And he explains the situation. He says, we've got a flight coming in. We've got 250 people coming in. They need meals. There's no one else to look after them. They will go hungry. What do we do? And there was a pause. See, what he did, he shared the why. He shared an emotional question with them, not a rational thing. And he shared with them the fact, I don't have the answers, but do you care about what I care about, which is these people? And then within 5 minutes, they were coming together to co-create a way forward. The chef goes, but we have the menus. We cannot do this. And Jane goes, I'll help you with the menu. He says, what? You are Jane. You are the plater. And what do you know about food? She says, well, actually, there's a jamboree on this weekend. There's 10,000, scouts in town. I'm actually here because my job is here, but actually I'm the chief scout in Darwin, and I've got a team of 200 people now creating the meals. And we put the menus together, and I'm here. And she looks at, see, they didn't know that she was more than simply the person that does the plating 9 to 5. She was a whole person called Jane, who happened to be also a chef in her own right. Within 15 minutes, she was in the fridges with the head chef, co-creating a new menu from what was there, What you want to see more of already exists in organizations, and they use their imagination, that all the terms you like, agility, whatever, call it co-creation, collaboration, they were doing it. Within an hour and a half, the first meals were going out to the airport, right? And they were going out with the TW drivers in the truck, loaded, but in the truck wasn't just the TW drivers, but the platers and the chefs were in there as well, because they had to go out and explain to the passengers what was in the food, because there was no time to put menus together. And the flighties had nothing. So they went out there. They were out there as a team together. And when they got there, about 12 o'clock, they got out the meals and they explained to passengers what was in the meals. And the passengers then invited them to share a meal with them. They had a meal together. It was the first time they'd ever seen the result of their work. And this was work that they had created using their own menus, and their own collaboration. And in turn, some of them called their mates who were off duty that weekend and said, come back in. Doesn't matter if we don't get paid, let's just do this. And because the experience is amazing. And at 6 o'clock on the Sunday night, right? At 6 o'clock the Sunday night, 60 members of the team waved goodbye to 250 passengers as the plane left. I get very emotional when I tell the story because
I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling emotional when you're telling it. Genuinely, it's incredible.
And as we saw this, now can you imagine this room of about 8 or 9 tough executive dudes, right? Gary's telling the story. As he's telling his story, his whole body and demeanor changes. He becomes animated. He becomes passionate. He becomes engaged, to use all those lovely words. And also not just that, but all the other guys in the room are leaning towards this guy. And so one guy says, so what happened on Monday morning? He said, well, we've got the airline called the chief executive of our company, who was in Sydney, to tell them that was the most amazing customer experience they've ever had. And the guy goes, you what, mate? What are you talking about? And of course, on Monday morning, it all reverted back to the status quo. And then I turned around to Gary and I said, Gary, if you could, no, and I turned around to the CEO and I said, did you like that story? His name was Cliff. Did you like that story? He said, that was an amazing story. And then I began to use a couple of appreciative inquiry principles, which I remembered from the talk. I was just literally speaking them out, which is, what you want to see more of already exists. It's there. And let's look for the diamond, not the dirt. And I said to the guys, I said to the CEO and to the guys there, let me ask a question. Did you like that story? And they go, yeah. And I said, does that have any relevance to our conversation about the future growth for the business? Because they were looking at how they become better at doing customer service and all that sort of stuff. And Cliff smiled and said, that's an amazing story. If that became the normal experience, the rest would take care of itself. And he said, but how do we do that, Jeremy? I said, well, of course, we do that using a priestly inquiry, don't we? I'm sort of winging it, right? And so we ended up running our first summit. We actually got a team together, which became known as the Blue Sky team. And we then mapped, the first time we did it in Australia, we mapped the entire end-to-end customer journey, right? Through catering, every single step, 70 steps, through the lens of storytelling around strengths. What was the most exceptional example of what worked? Rather than looking at the problem. And the result was, and a group came together to create the future, which resulted in a 30% reduction of cost, 15 steps taken out, the redesign of jobs, which were end-to-end jobs with meaning and connection, the barriers came down, and even the awards got changed. Now, that was a story that transformed my way of looking at the world. I now call that the summit room, where we bring people together at scale, and it transformed my whole life at that point in terms of what I thought was, was the way to engage people in the future. The story of what happened on that weekend when the flight went AWOL.
Jeremy, I'm feeling your emotion. I'm feeling it myself, because you're actually tapping into it. But really, you're tapping into a lot of what I believe in. You started your introduction around, reduction in waste, trying to improve things. And that's very much where my thinking, as I've come into this world of people and OD the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But for me, there's been something missing as well. And I've challenged, if I'm honest with you, I've challenged the strengths-based thinking to some extent, sort of going, but if you've got some element of, something's holding you back, surely it's still good to at least acknowledge that and maybe fix that. What's holding you back with someone else that's better at that, or, so I've had a few sort of discussions around strengths-based, but I think even if you strip that to the side, what you've just described for me, and a beautiful, true transformation you quoted, being about engaging head and heart and not just strategy. And I think that in itself is just so mind-blowingly succinct, because there's so much chat, isn't there, about transformation and what does it mean, what is it? But at the end of the day, none of it is talking about the human being, really.
Yeah. And let me throw a couple of things into the conversation here around collaboration. So whether I'm in Australia or in the UK or the US or Europe, it doesn't matter. There are some current words that buzz, like so innovation is a buzzword, right? Co-creativity is a buzzword. Collaboration is a buzzword, yeah? Engagement is becoming hot. Now, I also think about, remember the old Kaplan and Norton is the balanced scorecards, yeah? They brought the balanced scorecard, which was fantastic. The idea that all things are connected. They still had money at the top, which was interesting. But what their greatest gift, I think, in that book, in that sort of breakthrough in thinking, was the idea of lag and lead measures, yeah? So a lag measure is an outcome of something that you do, and it's usually behavioral. So the lead measures are what Kaplan said we should work on. If you get our customer service right, then the money will come, that kind of thing. So here's the realization for me was that innovation is the lag measure, collaboration is the lead measure, and so I've spent the last 3 or 4 years looking at how can we collaborate, and then recognize how can we really collaborate in ways that are authentic, that releases the full potential of our strengths. Recognizing a couple of themes. One, the fact that to collaborate we need an engaged workforce, and yet Gallup, there's lots of people do surveys now around engagement. But Gallup, have done it for a number of years now. They're the granddaddy of surveys. They're still showing 87% of the world's workforce is not engaged. Yeah. In a nutshell, their technology shows that 30% are engaged from the heart, and that's critical. The other thing is, and so if you're going to collaborate, how do you want to? I call them contributors, compliance, and subversives, the 3 levels of people in an organization culture. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to deploy the best and smartest technologies now, which are all about the third platform technologies like mobile, digital, social, analytics, big data, cloud. These are all what are called third platform, that they bring things together so we can see more patterns. But we don't want the 5 or 6 marketing people or the product people in the organization to be the ones to have access. We want everyone to have access to this data so they can have a conversation. And that means, though, collaboration, which means how do we engage collaboration? Well, so the technology allows you to collaborate at scale. It still starts with the individual. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? And one of the things about collaboration, if I and I do this when I'm speaking to a group of people, whether it be sort of a speaking gig, or more likely when I'm working with an organization's core team to actually take them down this journey of positive change rather than negative change or waste. And so I say, well, the word collaboration, the word co, or the prefix co, has two meanings. If you look up the dictionary, do a dictionary trawl on co, there are two referring the constant definitions of co. Can anyone think what one is? And they'll go, yeah, together, or something like that. You're right. What's the second one? Don't get it. Second one is equal. Collaboration means equality. Therefore, if we're going to take the collaboration road, we need to be able to have a conversation that leads to the restoration and extension of equality in our organizations and our cultures and our society. Because there's a lot of unequalness, in our organizations and our society, and so if we want to release, what does collaboration look like? It means a genuine, authentic engagement from who you are. It means that you feel free and able to be who you are. I use the term strengths and struggles now, not weaknesses. And so you're able to, people understand who you are. It means being authentic. It means being able to really bring out the issues on the table. It means high levels of trust. It means the ability to recognize that the new conversations morph our life and our work. So what we care about as a whole human being is what we bring to work, the future of work, not just what the job description tells us is that little bit of tiny part of Gary that's now been bolted into the organizational, database with a number put on. You rather like sort of the sort of, we all got employee numbers as if we're going to prison or something. And there's much more to Gary than that. So collaboration is about two things. It's about innovation from strengths in terms of what do we do well. So what do we do well as an organization or a culture? In order to do well, we first must be well. So what are our individual strengths and what are we passionate about? And so real collaboration takes the time out to really discover who people are. And it sees a collaboration, not as an organization, but as a combination of strengths. The future of work and the future of collaboration is combinations of strengths. Where people take the time out to do what you did with me just now, which is say, Jeremy, before we go any further, tell us who you are. So I'm a failed ganja smoker and I didn't quite get there with the girls in Jamaica, never mind. But I mean, there's a lot more to us than the job description tells us. So we're at a critical stage now. So I think the conversation, I'm working with a fantastic organization called MHR in Nottingham. MHR are a traditional, they are a leading HR tech company that actually were the first company in the UK to put payroll in the cloud, 10, 15 years ago. And they have a significant investment in that. They've got tremendous technology, 600 plus people, 5% of the UK workforce is on their payroll, for example. But they've also and they know that the future of work is going to engage a different way of working. And so they're developing a technology called People First, which is the world's first, what I call second stream technology around future work. First stream of technology is technology that continues the conversation, it continues the man's search for efficiency. It's an industrial model. So in that case, you look at automation, classic, robotics, but that's for its own sake. So in that case, they think of those sort of constructs, look at organizations as machines. So in the machine, the person at best is an operator of the machine. Now, what if you automate it? What happens then to the person, Gary? They go.
Absolutely.
Because you don't really care the stuff about them, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's what first stream, a lot of the conversations, and a lot of the fear, and a lot of the stuff you and I see on Twitter all the time, for example, is really a first stream conversation. So MHR developed a new platform, which is a second stream platform called People First, which I'm excited about in terms of what I've seen from it, which is the idea, it's a technology that enables Gary to be more of who he is and to engage all your data around your life and your work in a single app, which you own and you take forward for the rest of your life work together. And you connect with others who believe what you believe about how the future of work should be about augmenting people, and in a community that forms, that we engage with individuals and you share together, and with organizations and leaders who believe that people matter. And so they've called that, in the future of work, we'll put people first. And that's why I'm working with them. We're co-creating right now, co-imagining the world's first future of work design principles.
Yeah, lovely.
As an ethos, which will enable organizations to deploy technologies in ways that, first of all, engage their people to create the future of work in ways that matter to them, and then supported by that technology. So story first, data and platforms second. That's why I'm excited by my trips to Nottingham. That's why I'm bug-eyed now after a long trip, but I'm excited about what they're doing there. The other thing about them is just to be honest, I'm not plugging them, I'm just saying this is what I'm actually doing, because it's real for me, is that they are taking their people through their own journey of work. They're saying, look, we're a technology company. You know what it's like, mate. You and I have been around for a long time, and quite frankly, a lot of organizations who are into making products or delivering services really don't think in terms of the dog eating the dog food. They think in terms of how we can sell this to the customer, yeah?
Absolutely.
Now, in the past, we got away with that. But I think personally in the future, I don't think organizations that do that will get away with it, because I think there's a young generation coming through who want to be authentically engaged, yeah, and who are asking questions about the organization's authenticity. You've got to be authentic, and you've got to be able to say to the world, not do what we sell, but here's our story. Would you like to join the story as well? Would you agree with that?
I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think I'd even probably go a step further and say, I think you're absolutely right. With technology, the new generations coming through that demand that purpose and that meaning from what they do. But I think also what it's actually doing, though, for me, Jeremy, it's actually opening up, because me, you're a young person starting with a 6 in your age. You told me earlier. You don't look at it. I'm 41. We've got purpose, we've got meaning, but we haven't had a way to really leverage technology and the sort of community that we can now find on Twitter, LinkedIn. We were all individuals 10 years ago, not really knowing who else actually thought like we did, or could challenge us in a different way, or we could connect with to try and grow together like we can now. So I think so other generations have always had it in them, I think, but they've never believed there'd ever be the chance to be able to connect. Whereas now you've got this, back to what you're doing brilliantly around scale and your summit room, is actually how do we use technology to allow people that really care about making the world better actually find a way to get together. And I think it's brilliant what you're doing. I really do.
And I think if you think about it, the other room is the social room now. So one of the things that the guys are doing at MHR in Nottingham, they're co-creating one of the world's first social rooms. This is where a group of them are becoming hosts of a social room conversation around thought leadership on LinkedIn, sort of connecting with professionals or others around Twitter, and then a Facebook global community, which is a conversation, which is a collaboration. It's a community. And so I run a series called Becoming Social, which is how to start, get a group of 6 to 8 people to start that kind of conversation, building a social room. But it's authentic, and they are going through the same kind of sort of questions that everyone else is going through, which is and some of them they're engineers, they're UX designers. Not a lot of them are used to being authentic and open on social media. But the thing is, though, that they at the same time, it's like they wearing 2 hats. It's like when we did this conversation last week, I remember a couple of them really passionate about wanting to share what they're doing with people first, but they're reluctant to share on social media when they come to work. But as soon as they leave work, they start sharing on social media. Because the organization.
What is that? What's
because
that?
Fear.
Yeah.
Because the organizations have told them that they're not allowed to be the mouthpiece of the organization. Leave that to corporate comms. They've been told, and also the efficiency is about what you do. It's about the amount of hours you work. The idea of spending an hour a day on social media, on Twitter, collaborating with people, has no concept in the old way of doing business. But in the future, it's everything, because in collaborating with people on social media, you'll find new pipelines of work, because you'll engage with people who are there as social natives. You as a social native will engage with other social natives, and the work will come because people go, you know what, let's work out how we can collaborate. And so goods and services, transactions will pass hands, and everyone becomes a salesperson in the social room. It's just a different way of looking at it.
That is, I love what you just described there. That is so powerful for me, Jeremy. That point, which you spoke earlier about waste, and and to be honest, you're really shifting and challenging my thoughts a little bit, because I'm probably still coming a little bit as I come into this world from the focus on waste rather than a focus on strengths to an extent. So I'm learning from you today. So thank you for that. But I think what you just described for me, I don't know an organization in my network that would see spending an hour a day collaborating and communicating with people outside of their sector, people they don't know, different viewpoints. Every organization I know would see that as a cost and not an investment, without a doubt. So I think this is a really, really powerful discussion we're having. And I really hope people take time to listen to this, because I think it's, we really need to flip this fear, the fear that someone's not chained to their laptop 24/7 just doing the job they're paid to do,
So let me give you a practical example of how this works. Now here's a key word. We've mentioned it once already. I'm going to come back to it now, because it is a gateway into the future of work, and that is this word equalize, or equal. And equality and the lack of equality is the heart of so many problems. And the lack of equality is usually behind it is some kind of someone's desire to dominate or have power over someone else in some form. Now here's how it happens. The first conversation we had in Nottingham with these MHR, these beautiful MHR people, first guys, right? And we had a group of people in the room. One of them was very, very young on Twitter, 20 followers, that sort of stuff. And so we were coaching her, and she wrote and so one of the first things I do is with a group of people, the very first thing I do is say, Gary, Fred, Jeremy, Linda, I want you to imagine if you could change something for the better in the world or in your community, something that would result, something for the better, to see a positive outcome by using social media to collaborate at scale, what would it be? What would it be? And I asked each of them, and each of them came back and with an answer to that. And so someone go, well, hang on, why aren't you going to get them to write about the business? No, I'm going to get them to write about what they care about as individuals, and also what's your personal hashtag. And then then we'll discover what our shared hashtag is, and then we're going to write with both those in mind, and the rest will take care of itself, which is happening. So let's call her Linda. So she's in this social room conversation in Nottingham, and she's HR, and she's passionate about well-being. She's passionate about well-being, being well. I actually think being well is a more active term than well-being. And strengths-based, when have you been well? Turns a well-being concept into a positive question. What's the best example of when you have been well? Well-being is a concept. Being well is an active participative question. Anyway, I'm getting distracted here. But
that's good. Good.
So she's passionate, and she told a story about the time that she felt most well-being when she was actually doing a piece of work with the police force. She was actually HR in the police force, in one of the divisions of police in the UK, one of the constabularies. And so she was passionate about that, and I said, and so I shared this wonderful story, and so one of the things that obviously a business like a technology company is looking to do, the police might be a potential customer, because they've got payroll, they've got all sorts of things. So I said to her, smart, I said, so would you like me to, how many chief constables do you know? She goes, I don't know any chief constables. I'm way above my pay grade when I was there. I said, okay, well, let me connect you with a chief constable in the social room. You're going to do what? Yeah, here's his hashtag. So she wrote a blog. I wrote a little sort of, a tweet, as you do. Love this blog by X. hashtag boom boom, sorry, by handle boom boom. And then I put the handle of one of the chief constables who's following me on Twitter and having a conversation. And he's actually passionate about well-being, and said, over to you guys to have a conversation. And the rest, is history. Because in the summit room, in the social room, you don't have to go through all the secretarial loops and all the different hierarchies and all the different loops in terms of tenders to have a conversation from one individual to another who care about the same thing. Yeah. And I call that the future of sales as bypassing the gatekeeper.
Well, there's a lot in that. You may know that I come from a sales and marketing background. That's where I've been the last 20 years, coming into sort of the people sphere. So, this resonates a lot with me, Jeremy, from the point, I'm hearing a lot, particularly the last 18 months, and you're supporting this with your social room around this. Sales as a function is going to shift the next decade massively, because we're moving towards enrollment. People believing in your vision, people believing in you, people trusting you as a human being, not just as a faceless organization selling a product, but actually you as Jeremy. Like we've discussed on this podcast so far, us getting to know each other intimately will drive sales in the future. It won't be, here's my shiny product, do you want to buy it from me or not?
Yeah.
And I can really see that happening already, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm just about to do a social room and summit room install here in Melbourne, which is exciting for me because I've actually been going to England. I will continue to do so for a while because I love making a difference to the country of my birth. And but I think in some ways, maybe it's because of Brexit, maybe it's because of the NHS, maybe because Britain, UK is the first really genuine post-industrial society, dealing with what that means, massive immigration, massive change, and need to have a different conversation. The conversation around doing more with less isn't working anymore. Mm-hmm. We have to work out how to do more with more by bringing more strengths and stories into play.
Yeah,
and putting the resources in place that aren't there yet. But in Australia, I'm just sharing some of my stuff and then sharing the People First story. Actually, I've written a blog of 7 blogs on what's happening in Nottingham called People First, and just sharing some of these ideas and some of these experiences. And so there's a social native. Her name is Lynn, and she's a CEO, and in Melbourne. And she says, "Look, Jeremy, following me on Twitter for a number of years now. It's time. I love that what you're doing it with. I love the People First story. Time that we got together." And so I met with her, and we go through transformation. We need help, and I really like the idea of the social summit room. So can we meet for breakfast in Melbourne? So I walk into this crowded cafe, and I think, Lynn, oh gee, I didn't. You do sometimes. You're going to meet someone, you forget to sort of check what their picture looks like, and so I walk in the room. Before I know it, Jeremy, and there's Lynn. She comes to me, gives me a big hug. And then says, "I'll buy you breakfast." And before 5 minutes, we're gone. We were in an animated conversation because we already knew each other. Yeah. And she said, "Put a proposal in," but it doesn't really matter. The proposal was simply the official thing to sign the due diligence. It was nothing to do with whether the deal will be done. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that is what everyone can play now in the social room. And so organizations which think the old way that social doesn't matter will basically have sales forces which become minuscule in comparison with the future sales forces, which is everybody in the organization is part of some sort of sales process in the future.
Yeah, no, that totally resonates with me. And I think sort of what I've loved about our conversation so far, Jeremy, the theme of this podcast, vulnerability, self-awareness, inclusion, you've touched on all of those aspects. And it really seems to me that what you're doing and what you believe in, those factors of self, of really just being human, are such a fundamental part of what you're doing and what you believe in. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, and I think, and again, just flipping the lens. So I had the great privilege to spend a day with the Northwest NHS leadership group in Manchester last Friday week. I think you saw a video of that around sharing the concepts of the social and summit room. But the very first thing we did was to have an exercise for an hour or so around reframing reframing the questions, reframing the lens from that which you wish to avoid or fix to that which you wish to accomplish and innovate and grow. So I took them through a series of broke them up into groups, and here was a typical problem. Typical problem was, and I'll share this one example. So typical problem was the trains are late again. It actually came from a mate of mine, David Shaker, who did some work around this in British Rail a few years ago. Trains are late again. Panic. Let's get the people. Let's get the Six Sigma and Lean guys in. Let's find out the causes of what doesn't work. Let's fix it. Priest of inquiry. Different question. When have we seen an exceptional level of sustained arrival? And what was in place to enable that to happen? And thirdly, who cares? and get that into the room and have a conversation. So I got them to reframe that. So, for example, reframe. We've done HR background. We do exit interviews. You learn nothing about exceptional levels of engagement from studying what's causing someone to leave the organization. You learn nothing about the causes of light or what gives life to organizations from studying darkness or dirt. To find out what gives, so rather than look for what doesn't work, we reframe it and look for the most exceptional example of an organization as a living human system at its functional best. When you see most life, most vitality, those words are important. Most growth, most energy, and those are a different set of questions. And then you can apply it to a systems level discussion. Here's how it works just quickly. So I was working with an airline, a different airline a few years ago, just exploring how to deploy a priesthood inquiry and to engage in change, because real change should not, change management is an obsolete term. It's a linear, and it implies only a few people can control change. It is the opposite of collaboration, and it implies only experts know the answers. Well, actually, that they're the problem, not the. In this example here, so here's an example. Problem statement, airline issue. The baggage is missing, or the baggage is missing or late. Let's find out. Let's get a team together and let's find out the causes of why it's missing or it's late. Respond to a crisis. So when I'm sharing, this is the live real example of an airline. So when I'm sharing with the airline, the idea that you bring all your people in the room because you want to bring more ideas into the room. Oh, so let's get all our baggage handlers together. Okay, well let's not start with 1,000 baggage handlers. Let's get a core team of baggage handlers together. And let's get them to reframe this. So I got them, taught them, priest required, and started with this: baggage is arriving late. What would be a positive alternative? And someone goes, and they're quite smart because people are smart. The best people know best are the ones on the ground floor, I reckon. They know what's going on. So they go, okay, so let's reframe this, because the idea they were going to reframe a topic, right, and then invite others in the room to work up the strengths and then innovate from that. So the topic then shifted from a problem to when have we seen the baggage arrive on time, and intact for a sustained period of time. Again, this is not rocket science, but it does take a shift in thinking. And I went, great, that's fantastic. Then one of the baggage handlers in the core team goes, hang on, that's great, but it's not going to work by itself. I was hoping someone might say that. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're going to try and innovate from this, yeah? He said, but there's a number of different areas that have an impact on the baggage being late. So customer service, if they take the wrong sort of slip or something happens, if the flight caterers don't get all the meals out. In Australia, planes can't go out without everyone having a meal, even if it's just a blooming sort of half a biscuit, which it is these days in most of the planes. You still have got to make sure. So in Australia, the blooming caterers have guys waiting in little vans waiting for the waste rather than deal with the issue. They have these guys racing out to the planes with extra food. They're called extras. But if you're late with the food, then you slow the plane down, which means the baggage is late, right? So air traffic control can cause issues. All sorts of different people, right the way through the whole customer supply chain inside the company and outside, could have an influence. Then someone said, great, so we need to get representatives from other areas in. I said, yeah, great, fantastic. Then the other guy said, yeah, but there's an issue still. What is it? I'm smiling. He said, we're the only ones who care about the baggage. They don't care about the problem of baggage. They don't give a stuff. Think about what happened with when the flight went AWOL, the story I told at the beginning of the podcast. Think about the fact the truck drivers didn't care about the plating of the food. They didn't care about the menus as the chef did, but they all cared about the fact there's 250 people arriving who would go hungry. Yeah, that's what. So they found themselves transforming to a shared agenda. And so what happened after a conversation? I said, so what does everyone really care about this? And we all should or do care about the customer. So after that, they came up with a new conversation, a new definition of the further topic, was when have we seen the customer? And they kept going, so they come up with this. When have we seen? What's been the best examples of the most exceptional customer experience from the time they touch our company to the time they leave it? Wow! And then we took that right back up to the CEO, and then got his permission to bring representatives from all across the company and outside who were relevant to, the journey of the customer. And we had our first summit. And this is what blew me away. The baggage handlers opened it up and said, we are hosts of this conversation.
Beautiful. Beautiful,
Yeah.
Beautiful. Honestly, so many powerful stories for me, Jeremy. But I think what you just described there for me is one of the cruxes of what we're discussing. So if we're looking at inclusion, you're looking at people trying to bring their whole self. It's got to be safe. People have got to feel it's safe to do that. And I think, who's got the information, as you just described, the people doing the job. So how do we get organisations to be safe psychologically and actually allow those that do the job?
Well, I'll throw one more sort of concept, one idea into which I think might bring this together in terms of these different things. So the fundamental shift for me, way back in that, when listening to that guy say, don't we do anything well around here? We were talking about the catering. What I didn't understand then, but I came to understand, was at the heart of the strengths-based approach to police inquiry, for example, was that we have designed our organisations and our jobs around the parts of things, not the whole of things.
Mm.
So we have increasingly become specialised. We've created the silos. All of us see only parts of something. But the human spirit is designed to be part of wholeness. We've applied a deconstructionist set of tools to people and organizations. We break things down even further, as if we're going to isolate the parts. We isolate in order to fix. People aren't I don't want to be isolated. They want to be connected. What a police inquiry did, what I saw in that room with the baggage handlers and all their mates in the room, and the mushroom farm, another story I share, was the whole system in the room together, hearing the different stories from the whole, and what they experienced was wholeness. Everyone coming together, and they started to respect each other. They started to hear stories about the exceptional best, and they went to quiet themselves. Wow, I never knew that your work was so important. I never really understood who you were. I never really understood what your contribution is, mate. And then they began to then say, okay, so what's the positive core of all this together? They together reformed and formed the positive core, and then they became as one. So you ended up with equality, but also a oneness. But from the oneness, then you're able to see a richness of diversity. Diversity comes from equality, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And it comes from the wholeness. And so I'm going to encourage, at the heart of my work is to coach organizations and societies to return to the wholeness of things. The greatest about the technologies we've got now is that they provide a platform to restore the whole. But the technology by themselves can't do it. There has to be a conversation around who am I, who are you, and what do we care about? So my question is, if we were to bring a group of people in the room together, what would you change for the better? Together.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Honestly, that's the only word I can use. Jeremy, honestly, it's absolutely beautiful what you're doing, and yeah, you've really helped me actually sort of clarify better actually. So thank you for that around this sort of strengths-based approach. I do get it. I do understand it. I thought I did, but I think what you've helped me with today is rather than it just being a leadership tool or an organizational tool, it's actually something very fundamental that can help bring humanity closer together again, fundamentally by using this. And that's way more powerful for me than just a leadership tool to try and get more out of somebody, if you see what I mean. So,
well, if again, I'd say we're moving from the age of leader as hero to leader as host.
Yes.
And in the true leadership, anyone can host. Anyone can host. This is the beauty about this. So you see the best of. I look for the best of things. Yeah, you see some rubbish and bad stuff on social media, but if you put that to one side and look at the power, the best of it, you see people being drawn together. You see extraordinary examples of sharing, don't you? I mean, you and I are both Twitter social natives, and we see people who give, willingly give their effort, their time, what you and I would call, what people call IP. They give it in ways that if you're part of a normal organization, you would not be allowed to give it away because it's seen as here's the last principle. The parts of things create a deficit mindset. So, for example, NHS is under crisis, as we know, in the UK. I don't know how many different transformation projects are going on, but there are millions of them. But they will be done from the parts of things, not the wholeness of things. If you brought the whole together, what the guys in the Northwest Leadership NHS team are going to be looking to do the next 12 months following our conversations a couple of weeks ago is to find microcosms of the NHS in society, particular towns or whatever, and look to bring them into social and summit rooms to create the new NHS from the wholeness of things, not the parts, where members of the public are equal players with the experts, where being a doctor, you move from being the doctor, the specialist, to being Fred or Mary, yeah, as a member of community. And only then, when you do that, you can then bring all the different strengths into play, but you do it from a sense of wholeness.
That's really powerful. I think also if you look at the other end of, let's call it societal systems, back to education, I think there's also something in that as well around actually, whether you're using strengths-based or other tools to try and actually connect the wholeness of education into the world of work, into society. So it sounded to me that this what you're doing is brilliant and can be scaled even further. Right.
Well, I think the future of work actually starts in the schools, and I think that the young kids. I mean, my 6-year-old granddaughter has just left us tonight, but she's got her iPhone. She's got her iPad. She's running a YouTube channel. She's got, called A Tale of Ruby, I think it's called, and she does a YouTube. Last 2 weeks ago, she gets 200,000 views. Now, of course, mum and dad are making sure there's some checks and balances in there, but once that's in place, you can still then. But she is sitting down with my beautiful wife Sue, and showing her how to use the analytics on her iPhone, and she's 6 years old. But she's also got that creativity and that incredible. So here's my point: she's got the tool now. She's got the app. She's got the iPhone. She's got the technology. And she's got the creativity that's built, and then the wonder and the magic. Young kids ask why, and at some point, our school system stops you from asking why. Yeah, it's the Pink Floyd brick in the wall stuff. Yeah, can't have you pudding until you eat your meat, and so. Here's the great opportunity. If we can get people engaged, school systems and working with organizations now to create conversations and engage these young kids from the age of 6 years old in the future of whatever it is, and to continue to enable that creativity to flourish rather than kill it, then a lot of our issues in society will be solved, because we can bring people together at scale to at least and to reconfigure combinations of strengths connected at scale to apply to humanity's most pressing problems.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I think the thing I'm hearing an awful lot as well, I'm sure you are, everybody's talking about curiosity. Be more curious, look out for this, try and grow that, but be curious. And it's really fascinating because coming back to what you're just describing, when did we lose curiosity? It's become a thing to try and harvest and to try and use more often, which is really positive, but it's almost like we've woken up to the fact that we used to have it once, but now we need really to find it again to make the most of the social room, the summit rooms, and the technology that we have.
Well, we put you know, just to finish up for tonight, we put kids into boxes very soon. You know, they've got to decide what particular pathway they take, which course, which syllabus. Government does the same thing with the way it carves up its money. It puts them into programs, yeah. Mm-hmm. So you get put into a box, and the people are basically left with the bit to steer through the what and the how, but never the why. The why's taken away from people, mm-hmm. and we've got to restore the why. But it's not just the organizational. It's not the organizational why. It's the individual why. You know, this term personal brand, I don't particularly like it. I think because that's a marketing term. People are not just marketing people. But I understand what they're trying to say, that everyone's unique. But it's so I say to people now, can I ask you a question? And I'll go, yeah, they'll say, so what's the future work? I say, can I ask you a question? I say, sure. What's your personal why? And what's the hashtag that's your personal hashtag, which reminds you and connects you with others around their personal why connecting with yours? What is that personal why? Now, you think about it. When I started work 40 years ago, I didn't sit down with my bloody supervisor and he didn't say to me, what's your personal why? We wanted no concept of that.
Yeah.
But now, the young kids, if you ask them that question, they may say explain, but they're not going to be confused by it. You might use that in different frame, in different language, but you know what I'm saying. They're interested. They want to know. In other words, another question is, what legacy do you want to leave? Mm. And who will you do it with? And how will you have fun and joy along the way? So it becomes fun. So the future of work is also the fellowship of the ring. You know, it's a bond. And I think that's, so for me, it's about looking for the lead. So where the leadership does come in, I think it's about finding those leaders that who are open to this, open to have a go, as we say in Australia. Have a go, mate, at being a host. Yeah, have a go at initiating. So the future of work leaders initiate the summit and social room conversations, and they engage it. Yes, they connect it to a strategic issue facing the organisation, but they take the time to reframe the strategic issue, which is almost always a problem statement, to an affirmative topic, and then they invite people to come and imagine and co-create a shared future from the best of their experiences through storytelling today.
Amazing. I could talk to you all day and evening, but I know you're probably getting quite late in Australia, Jeremy.
Well, I'm going to have some tea, then we go out for
So look, thank you so much for sharing the time. I just think I feel really inspired listening to you. Thank you for sharing the story, your background, as well as what got you into what you're doing. I think it's it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Those that aren't already following you, but I'm sure there'll be more that do want to listening to this. So can you just wrap up by letting people know how they can reach out to you, sort of hashtags, handles, etc.
Yeah, I mean,
do so.
I absolutely love to connect with people, and so obviously it's the Twitter handle at Jeremy Scrivens, and my LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have just mentioned this blog, this podcast, and I'll follow you back on LinkedIn. Also, I've got a series of blogs. LinkedIn, I think, is the best portal now. Their Pulse portal is the best portal in the world for publishing articles and blogs. I use that as my mainstream. So there's a bunch of about 70 odd articles and posts around these subjects and stories. That's a repository for me. So through LinkedIn, and if you want to feel led, then follow through and on Twitter and reach out to me, DM me, or on LinkedIn, and we'll continue the conversation.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Jeremy. I look forward to meeting you in real life at some point going forward. But keep up the good work.
We'll get there.
We will do. No, great to chat.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.